Hi friends, it's been a while. I hope you're doing well and I hope you had a wonderful holiday season. And today in this video I wanted to discuss things that I wish I knew before I started learning French. So these are things that could have made the whole process of learning French easier for me, and these are things, good to know things, if you're thinking about learning French or if you just started learning French. If this is something of interest to you, make sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel. And without any further ado, let's get started. And the first thing I wanted to say is that French phonetics is easy. Yes, if you already started learning French, now you're probably like, what? What is she saying? But hear me out. French phonetics can be overwhelming. There are a lot of reading rules that you need to learn. There are a lot of sounds, and especially there are unique sounds that probably do not exist in your language. Like for Russian speakers, it's hard to learn any nasal vowel or many other sounds. But French phonetics is really very well structured. If you know all the rules that there are in French phonetics, and if you know how to produce all the sounds and how to write them down, like what letters mean what sound, then you'll be able to read just any French word, which I cannot say about English. I haven't really studied English phonetics in depth, so maybe I'm not the right person to speak, but I am always confused about how to pronounce words with the same letter combinations because they can be pronounced differently, like could and cloud. They both have the same OU letter combination, but they are pronounced differently. In French, this is not the case. In French, there's a rule, OU always gives us OU sound. And if you know that you should pronounce OU with your tongue pulled back, then that's it. You're gonna always pronounce all the words with OU as OU sound, like bonjour, jour, you have OU. There are some exceptions to the rules. And some cases are still a little bit complicated, like AN and EN always give us a nasal A sound. So from an orthography point of view, it's gonna be a little bit hard to know which one to write if they give one sound. So phonetics does not give all the answers, but still it is well structured, and once you learn it, you're gonna just know it and you're gonna be able to read any word. And the next point is kind of derived from this one. Learn all the reading rules at the beginning. I know French phonetics can be very overwhelming and reading French can also be overwhelming, but this is completely not true that they say that the sounds, they're not what you read. It's exactly what you read. If you know that AU should be pronounced as O, they will be pronounced as O all the time. If you see EAU letter combination, I know it looks intimidating, 3 letters that give us only one sound, but again, it's always gonna be one sound. And that's about it. Like, there are a lot of rules. It's definitely gonna take some time to learn them all, but once you learn them, you're going to be able to read it, and it's going to be such a great boost of confidence. On this channel, there are a lot of phonetics videos that you can watch and improve your pronunciation, and also learn some of the sounds and some of the reading rules. Especially, I think the most interesting videos are based on French songs, because it's also easier to remember the song and repeat it. So it's gonna be an exercise, like an easy to repeat exercise, easy to come back to it. So I definitely would suggest that. But maybe having more structured lessons about French phonetics, having some kind of schedule or a habit of learning, let's say a sound per day, that's gonna be even better. Next point is also about listening, and it's listen as much as you can to the French speech. When I was at the beginning of my learning journey, I had the misconception that I was supposed to listen or to speak French only later on. So first I thought I should learn basic grammar and vocabulary, and this is not true. This is wrong. And if speaking is a little bit tricky because you need to have someone you can speak to, listening can be implemented from day one. And there was a research carried out in New Zealand or Australia, I can be mistaken here, that showed that just the fact of being exposed to the language without actually knowing the language will boost your learning process. It has to do with how we acquire our first native language just by listening, being exposed, and repeating after our parents or friends. So what I suggest you do is choose one source of French speech, maybe music or podcasts or radio. I think radio is just the easiest, and put it on every day. Let's say every morning while you're making your breakfast, or while you're having your breakfast, while you're working out, whatever. Just put this on the background. You don't really have to make real lessons out of this. Just put it on the background and be exposed to it while you're doing things that you're usually doing. Next, French grammar is all about iterations. I'm not sure if this is a universal rule or if it's just me, but I was never able to learn a French grammar rule, the whole thing, from the first attempt. For me, what really worked out is to learn a bit, maybe like the rule in its basic form, and practice, use it, and then in some time come back to it. I think, yeah, now that I think about it, maybe it is a universal rule, because when you, like, if you get different grammar books, they'll probably have the same rule, but depending on the level, it's going to be either really not superficial, but in a simpler, explained in a simpler way, or if it is advanced, it's going to be more detailed. So really taking into consideration that the first iteration or attempt at learning is not the final one, and I don't need to know everything, would have given me so much less stress, I think, because I always felt like I didn't know anything even after spending so much time learning and learning. I think it's just also about being patient with yourself. And French grammar overall, it is complicated, it is complex. There are a lot of things that you need to learn. There are a lot of tenses. There are a lot of just things like nouns and gender of nouns and article that depends on the gender, and then a lot of other things. Not all of them are used in daily life though. Especially I'm speaking about tenses, so another thing is important not to get caught up in French grammar and not to be afraid of speaking even if you don't really know it all and know it everything, or you don't know it in detail. At some point I spent so much time with learning different French tenses that are not even used in conversations. There are some tenses in French that are only used in writing, and especially in books, so you don't really even use them when you write or when you write an essay or a message, anything. And I spent too much time trying to know it all about all those tenses, but I don't even use them. I don't even remember their names anymore. Next, I didn't know that learning dialogues is such a powerful tool, especially for complete beginners. I think that working with dialogues is like killing multiple birds with the same stone. It's listening practice. Ideally, each dialogue is supposed to have an audio. Then it's also new vocabulary, because you translate the dialogue after you listen to it. It's also reading, because you read, and it's pronunciation practice. When you try to repeat after a speaker, you're practicing your pronunciation. Maybe this is not the best sound practice, so you're not gonna be able, I don't think that if you're an adult, you're just gonna be able to learn the native way of pronouncing sounds just by listening and repeating. Ideally, you should know how exactly to move your mouth, and otherwise you're just gonna use your native articulation. But for just getting overall idea of sounds and getting idea of the melody of the language and intonation and all that kind of stuff, pauses and other prosody things, I think this is a great way. And also learning it by heart is just doing all of it at the same time, practicing sounds, practicing intonation, learning new words, learning new grammar structures. So I really wish I had done more of it. And this is something I've actually done with my students, and I saw amazing results. And the last thing is that learning words is not as useful as learning word combinations. Yes, I've done a lot of simple language learning mistakes with French. About words, so first, it's a complete disaster to learn words in French without gender, so without an article. It's completely useless. If you don't know the gender of a word, you're gonna make a lot of mistakes, so it's gonna lead to even more confusion. But also just learning words, I think it's fine, but it depends. Maybe words like, you know, daily words, maybe it's fine. But I found that especially as you're getting advanced, it's much easier to learn word combinations or even the whole sentences. It's not only about the word itself, which by the way can have multiple meanings in different contexts, so having the context is really useful. But also it is about how the word plays with, like, within a sentence, and about the connections that this word may have with other words. Like, let's say, you know how many French verbs are followed by a preposition. For instance, you can say parler de, or you can say parler à quelque chose, ou you can say aider quelqu'un à faire quelque chose. So there are these prepositions. So just learning aider is helpful, aider, help, but you won't be able to really use it with other words because you're not going to be able to connect this word with all the others. I hope this makes sense. I think when you have the context, the whole sentence or phrase, it all becomes more imaginative. So it's easier to imagine, picture in your head. And if it's easier to picture in your head, it's something more memorable. It's easier to remember. So learning word combinations turned out to be so great. Personally for me, let me know if you've ever tried it and what you think about it. But with French, I've made the mistake of just trying to learn words. With English, I've been trying to learn word combinations and sentences. So when I watch a TV series, I always write down not only a word, but a word combination. That's how I learn. And maybe that's why I feel more confident about my English. This is the things that I wish I knew when I started learning French. Share yours in the comments. Hopefully you'll like this video. If so, like it and subscribe to my channel for more French content like this. And I'll see you in my next one. Au revoir!